Welcome to Let's Talk Sedalia. This is the Smith Cotton News section. I'm joined with...
Josie Peck.
And Maddie Rutke.
And why are you guys here?
So we're here just promote a little bit of our DECA project for this year. It's called Permission to Pause, and we just wanted to get it out to the community.
And how'd you come up with this idea?
So I've been working at Chill Cryotherapy and Wellness for over 2 years now, and Angie Howard, the owner, and I have always thought that everyone, all the women that always come into our business and businesses like ours, any health and wellness business, always find it hard for them to come into the business because they're always taking care of their husband or their kids, and they never put the time aside for themselves to come and relax and help get their mind back on track in order for them to be healthy and ready to support the rest of their people and their family.
All right, and can you tell us a little bit about this project?
So we did this project so women of all ages can come to our event at the Foundry and visit with local-owned health and wellness businesses. Not only will the women in our community be able to learn about the different resources available to them, but these small businesses will be able to advertise to the appropriate clients.
All right, and can you tell me about the schedule for the day?
Yeah, so we're hoping that we'll have everyone start coming in around 9, so about 9:45, and then at 9:45 we'll start with some speakers. So one of them will be Angie Howard, the owner of Chill, and then another one will be Callie Lucchesi, the owner of Healthy Habits, and then our last speaker will be Christina McClendon, and they will all talk a little bit about their business and also reasons why it is important for women to get out there and focus on their health.
All right, and will there be prizes?
Yes, there will be. So each booth, you'll be able to punch your permission slip is what we're calling them. And you can, after you go visit every booth, you can turn your permission slip in at the end and get in a raffle for the bigger prize. So like a gym membership or stuff like that.
And for those prizes, are you guys looking for any sponsors or?
Yes. So in order to get a table, we have 4 different categories for sponsorships, and I can read those off to you. So for our $100 sponsorship option, that includes a booth / display set up at the event the day of. And we also encourage everyone to be there to hand out to hand out all of their flyers or information about their business. And then also you will be included in the scavenger hunt for the day of. So you'll be included in the permission slip as a punch on the card. And then you will be mentioned in all of our promotions throughout the project and online throughout Facebook. And also we will be having a storefront participation scavenger hunt. So any business that has a storefront, for example, Chill or Healthy Habits, you will be able to go and visit those places for an even bigger prize.
And do you guys have anything else to mention?
We just hope to see all ladies of all ages to come join us January 11th from 9 to 1 at the Foundry here in Sedalia.
All right, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Welcome to another session of Let's Talk. I am Ron Toller, one of your co-hosts for this program, and also in studio with me today is Mr. Zach Bogard. He is our production engineer. He is a senior at Smith Cotton High School and a member of the new CAPS program, which is the Center for Advanced Professional Studies. So welcome, Zach, and thank you for your assistance. This program is coming to you today from the studios of WK Chevrolet here in Sedalia, and we certainly want to thank them for the use of their facilities. Hopefully, in this program, as in all of our programs, you'll learn something about our community and the people of our community that you may know or you may not know. In particular, today, we have a guest in the studio that has been a big part of Sedalia for many years, and that gentleman is Mr. Jack Miller. Now, many of you all may have seen his name before because, well, number one, he's a lifetime Sedalian, and he's also a long-time guest columnist in the Sedalia Democrat. You pretty much will find him in there at least every couple of weeks. I know he's always interested with his column where he writes about basically life in Sedalia. So before we go on further, Jack, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And let's just start out maybe with you talking a little bit about your history, schooling, how you came up, military life, and then also your work in journalism.
My past is not all that different from a lot of people that grew up in the 40s and 50s. Because back then there wasn't a whole lot of opportunities for a kid 17 years old. So I joined the Navy and went through the Navy. Actually, I am retired Navy right now, which I'm very glad of because a lot of perks go with that and everything.
And hopefully you're very proud of. Thank you for your service.
Very proud of my service. But after I was out of the service, which I had broken service, I had both regular Navy and also reserve time, which I did in Springfield, Missouri up here. A lot of people don't know that we have Navy facilities in Missouri, but we do have a couple of different places where the Navy Reserve meets. When I got out of the Navy, it was in '95, and it was one of those things where I had to get out because I was having problems with my heart. And of course, I was a little older than most sailors at that time anyway, so it was probably time for me to retire.
How many years in total
I
were
had
you involved
22
in
years altogether.
22.
Yeah.
22.
And I spent most of my active time on old World War II destroyers. I went in 1955, right after Korea, and what the Navy was made up then was a lot of World War II leftovers, which we kept running this one of those things just like the old hot rods, with the baling wire and so forth. You kept them going, but they did the job back then. They really did.
I know because we've talked earlier, and I know you can name the 4 destroyers right off the top of your head.
Oh yeah, I can. I had my first ship was the USS Hawkins. I went aboard her in January of 1956. I also served aboard the USS Gaynor. That was a small time because it was one of those times where the Hawkins was going overseas and I was about to get discharged. So they put me on the Gaynor for 4 months. I got out of the Navy for a little while. I got married and went back in, and I served aboard the USS Goodrich and the USS Steinecker. All 4 were the old World War II destroyers, so they fit me real good.
So tell me, obviously being in the Navy for a number of years and being on a number of ships, what would be a quick summary of what part of the world you got to?
Actually, I was stationed during my active time. I was stationed on the East Coast, and where I spent most of my time overseas was in the Mediterranean or in the Caribbean. We had, I actually spent more of my active time in the Mediterranean than I did in the States, because we had at that time, the Navy was very active. They spent about 7 months at a time, destroyers did, deployed. So we spent 7 months each year we spent over in the Mediterranean.
There's a worse place to be than that.
That was a good place to be.
Sure.
There was it was very interesting to be in all those different ports, and I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. So when your military life is all said and done, and you're back here to your hometown, I would say the next stage of your life evolved around the concept of journalism.
Yeah, I'd say so too. The thing of it is I got into writing the way maybe some other people did, but I went in through the back door because it wasn't planned to do. But I got hurt on the job when I worked out, and I worked for Payless Cashways, and I got hurt on the job, and so I was home and bored and everything. So I started writing, and they had a little column in the Sedalia Democrat called Down Memory Lane, and I started writing for Down Memory Lane. I'd send in memories of my youth and my past, and they were kind enough to print them, and got quite a bit of people talking about my column, which really felt good when you run into somebody on the street and they say, "Hey, I read your column and I like it." That kind of makes your day right there.
Oh yeah, I think your head might swell just a little bit from
Yeah,
that.
it certainly does.
So, I mean, I see your columns in the Sedalia Democrat all the time, but how frequently are you published?
I'm in every week now.
Okay,
I'm
Tuesday or Friday?
well, I'm in Tuesdays. The thing of it is, you mentioned that I was a guest columnist. I'm actually a contributing columnist, which there is a little difference, not a whole lot, but a little difference.
Now I know, and of course you're with the Democrat now, but I know you had other experience in the areas of news and journalism. Tell me a little bit about those.
Well, when I was hurt there, and I was out like for 3 or 4 months because of a problem with my knee. I had to have surgery on my knee, and so I was like I said, I was bored, but I was sending stories to national magazines, and I was able to get a couple of things, including poetry, that was published
National.
by national magazines, and that was kind of exciting.
Sure.
I haven't done that for a while, and it's something I keep thinking maybe I should send something in, but I just haven't done it lately.
So, other than the radio station, your other journalistic resting places in Sedalia were what?
Well, you mentioned the radio stations. I worked for both radio stations, KDRO and KSIS, as a newsman for quite a few years. I actually worked for I worked for KDRO for about 3 years, and then I went over to KSIS, and I worked there for 11 years. And after that, I went out to Walmart to work. I kind of enjoyed all those.
But after KSIS, was that your last, other than the columns that you write on your own? I'm not sure what the term is. I'll call you an independent contractor. Is probably a better term.
Yeah. Well, the column is takes up quite a bit of my writing right now, but I do have 4 books that are for sale locally and also online.
But
So
let's jump into those 4 books for a little bit. Give us the name and at least a synopsis of what's in there.
well, one is a poetry book, and it's got a lot of my poems in it that I've written. Actually, I started writing poems from about the second, third grade on, there was an old school teacher, and I like I said, I don't remember her name, and the school could never tell me who taught that year. So, I mean, somehow or another, that information got lost.
But she pointed you down the trail?
She actually, she knew I had an interest in poetry. And so she brought in a book that had animals in it and no writing. And she asked me to put 2-line poem on each one of those. And I did. And she told me later that she had actually used that book to teach her class, because it was, but it was simple poetry, I'm sure.
Sure.
Very simple. I don't think, I don't think a second or third grader could be expected to put out anything real poetic.
So how many years later did you actually write the book of poems?
The book of poems is something that actually took shape from the 2 books that I wrote, nostalgia books that were about my past, and I would include some poems in those. Well, over the years, I kept writing poems and writing poems, and finally got enough that I felt like I could fill a book up. So I finally compiled all of them and put them in a book. The little nostalgia books, actually were my columns. I finally got enough of those that would make a book, and so I put those together, and then that's how I really got going with radio stations. Is I went to KDRO and sold them on the idea of me reading my column over the air, and so that's kind of how all that got started.
What comes to mind to me, you remember the radio program, I think it was a statewide program called, what was that?
Across Our Wide Missouri.
Exactly.
That man was great at that. He had the voice for it and everything. I used to love to listen.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned a book of poetry and 2 books, I'll say, of memories of your history. What's number 4?
Number 4 is called Sins and Revelations. It's a book of short stories, and it more or less covers some of my R-rated stuff.
I guess I won't ask for a further explanation.
No, well, it's not it's not X-rated anyway. I'll put it that way. But it's just short stories, and it's mixed genre. It's I'm one of those whose mind wanders, so I couldn't write just one full book, but I can write short stories, and so the short stories is another thing that I compiled and put it into this book called Sins and Revelations.
Everything you've written is under your actual name, right? No pen names.
I don't use a pen name, no.
And all these books can be found in local bookstore?
Actually, Bazoo Books over here in State Fair Shopping Center handles all my books. They also can be bought at Amazon, except for the little nostalgia books.
Uh-huh.
Those would have nobody away from this area would
Right.
probably really care for those.
I understand.
So I mean, those I just keep local.
So change it up here a little bit. One thing I want to make sure our listeners know, because I had mentioned you were a lifelong Sedalian, and of course you're also a graduate of Smith Cotton, or the original Smith
I
Cotton.
actually, I actually went to the 10th grade at Smith Cotton. And then I went in the Navy. And I finished high school with an OU SOPI course while I was in the Navy. That was a course that you took and an officer graded, and then when I got out of the Navy, I took the GED test and I got my high school diploma. I would have been the class of 57. And the people in that class were nice enough to let me go to the reunions and so forth like that.
Great.
So
Great.
that was something I was really, I don't know whether you know Barb Friend or not,
I do.
but Barb was one of them that was always very nice to me, and thought it was nice that I would come to their reunions.
It just gave you a little more to write about.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
And
sure.
quite a bit of my writing would have had to have done with some of my friends and also from my high school.
Sure. Sure. So obviously, in one way or another, you've been involved in journalism for a lot of years. And of course, journalism has changed drastically during that same time period. What's your comments on how it's changed over the year, the good and the bad?
Well, the thing of it is I grew up with a lot of the old people that did the news a certain way. They would have thought they would have not even considered telling a story, lying about something or anything like that. And nowadays, I think that a lot of the people on television and on radio will do nothing but shock stuff to get an audience.
Make the story fit what they want.
Yeah, they're and just about all of them have got an audience, so it must be working for them.
Yeah, and of course nowadays with 24-hour news, you don't get away from it.
No, and the thing of it is you can watch a show in the morning and go back that evening, and you'll hear the same show.
Yep.
Basically, maybe different people in front of the camera, but you're going to hear the same show.
Well, and many times it is still the same person.
Right.
They're just rerunning it.
Yeah. I grew up listening to people like Eric Severide, Walter Cronkite.
Right. Huntley and Brinkley.
Yeah, those people, were great as far as I was concerned, and you trusted them. You always felt like they was telling you the truth.
And nowadays, you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
I think so. I think that's what the difference is. You have to kind of edit everything yourself.
I guess in some ways I'm still one of those old-fashioned folks. I mean, certainly I pick up news articles on my cell phone or my iPad or whatever, but I still like to hold things in my hand when I'm reading them.
That's the same with me. I like to even though the paper has went down, excuse me, to 2 papers a week, which is Tuesday and Friday, I still get that paper because I want to hold that paper in my hand. I want to read it like I always have.
Sure.
I miss the papers the way they used to be. And you'll remember when the newspaper, when it come out on Sunday, it was a very thick paper. And it had in it, the Sunday funnies, which would have been several pages of colored cartoons and so forth. It would have had all of the, when we had 3 theaters, plus the drive-in theater out there, we would have all these different ads for the different movies that were being shown, and those were interesting too.
Well, you know, I mentioned holding a paper in my hand. The same thing goes for books. I'm still a real book fan. I probably need to get more into audiobooks just because I can make better use of my time.
Yeah.
But haven't got there yet. But
If I drove back and forth to work again, you know, if like I did before, I lived in Smithton. I would drive to when I worked at Payless Cashways. Well, I always would go to the library and pick up a book on tape. And my favorite books on tape came, you know, like biographies and so forth. And one of my favorite ones is Charles Kuralt.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think he does his On the Road.
Yeah, and of
stuff.
course he was on CBS for years.
Yeah, oh yeah. But On the Road, he had done such a great job on that. And I hated to see his program when it ended. I hated to see him go. But there's been quite a few characters down through the years, people who wrote different kind of books and everything. I have a very varied idea of, you know, what I like to read. I like science fiction, you know, and I like biographies, like about the presidents and so forth like
Sure.
that. But people like Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote real good science fiction, real tight science fiction, as did Isaac Asimov. And but you know, we've got some real good authors around Sedalia area, not just in Sedalia. I'm talking about all around the country. And when they had the bookstore, if you remember the bookstore that they had in Thompson Hills, that's where I took the first book that I wrote, Unhurried Days. And I took that book to the lady that ran Sandy that ran the bookstore. And she put it on her shelf. And then they'd have book signings all the time. But they wouldn't have book signing with just one author. They would have, like, we'd be like 10, 15 of us in that little store. And it was a great time, you know. You got to talk to all the other authors and everything like that. It was a lot of fun.
And, you know, I was thinking back to the newspapers, and, you know, we've already commented that the Sedalia Democrat is down to 2 days a week, and it not only covers us, but it covers Johnson County and Warrensburg as well. So, I mean, unfortunately, I think it's just a matter of time before that type of journalism goes away.
I think it's all going to go digital, all going to go on the internet.
Sure.
You know?
And, you know, it's not just unique to us. You look at the Kansas City Star or the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, I mean, they're just a smidgen of what they used to be.
USA Today, I always liked that paper, you know, and you can't find that anymore hardly. Yeah.
Can online.
Yeah, they're online. Yeah, they know how to do it, didn't they?
So go back to your columns a little bit. I mean, you've been doing them a long time.
Over 25 years.
That's a lot of writing.
Yep.
And a lot of varied subjects. Do you have a rough idea of how many you wrote and submitted over that 25 years?
No, I really don't. And I've written a lot more since my 2 books were published. So I've probably got more than enough material for another book. but you know, whether I'll put it together or not, I just don't know.
So, I mean, this is kind of a question without an answer, but the things that you've all done over the years, I mean, it's obviously it's quite various. I mean, you worked for Payless, you were in the Navy for many years, you were on the radio as a newsman and otherwise for many years, and then of course an author in the newspaper. Is there anything new you want to do yet for the balance of your days? Anything on your bucket list?
No, I tell you what, there's maybe if I was younger, I could come up with some things, but that actually, you know, when you get to be my age, if you've got something someplace where you can send your writing, like I have the Sedalia Democrat, that pretty well it kind of does that.
Well, basically, you said who Jack Miller is.
Yeah, and it just more or less satisfy that need to write. You know, if I can send an article in every week and see it on the in the paper, it kind of satisfies that need to write.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that, if it ever goes digital, like we talked about, then I may have to start thinking about writing something different.
Well, you'll have plenty of things to write about.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna ever stop writing as far as that goes. I don't think you could. I don't think anybody that you know is interested in writing is ever going to stop.
Sure. You know, we actually had talked about this off camera before, but you know, there are so many interesting things out there now to help you write. You know, for example, writing your own memoir.
Yeah.
You know, there are subscriptions that you know you can get through a party that's helping with this, and they will send you a different subject every week.
Mm-hmm.
And if you document about that subject and how it relates to your life, your family, whatever, by the end of it, you'll actually have a book.
Yeah.
And you know, they also put the book together as well. So, I mean, in all honesty, that's kind of one of the things that's been on my bucket list in retirement. I'm started, but I got a ways to go. But it's fun.
You know, I've always said that my children will never have to wonder what their father or my grandchildren think about what their grandfather was like,
Sure.
because all they got to do is read my books.
Sure. And I will tell you, just in my personal experience of putting those memoir things together, just the history that you are reviewing about yourself. I mean, it is just tremendous when you think back over the years, and you'll be thinking of things that you had forgotten about years ago, and all of a sudden they're back. And by golly, it can also be emotional while you're doing that. I've laughed out loud while I've worked on those chapters, and I've also had more than one tear when I worked on those chapters. So it's really interesting.
Every once in a while, I'll hit a subject that makes me really choke up. You know, about my past or something like that. But you know, I had one of those books that I gave to my mother and asked her to fill it out. I had to do a lot of fighting with her to get her to finally start writing something down. But I've got that book, and every once in a while I'll pull that book out.
Sure.
And look through it and read it. You know, it's got who her first boyfriend was, where she went to school, you know, what she liked to do. Just simple things that we don't think is important, but when they're gone, we know they're important.
Right. And this is off the beaten path a little bit, but you know, I would just stress to our listeners, yeah, if your mother or father want to write a book, a memoir for you, that's wonderful. But if not that, take the opportunity that you have and talk about their lives and
Right.
what they went through. And I was able to do some of that, but not nearly as much as I really wanted to when it was all said and done and they were gone. There's a lot of wonderful history just by word of mouth
Yep.
from family members.
I love having good conversations with people, and I really miss some of the people in my past that have gone. Uh, a boy named Dick Preisendorf. I joined the Navy with him, and he worked for a filling station that used to be there on actually the Ford garage is where he worked, and I used to go down there and talk to him, and every once in a while he would give me a great idea. Matter of fact, one of the best stories that I ever wrote actually come from him, because we were talking one day about the old Coney Island that used to be downtown. And he was talking about it, and he told me, he said, he said there was a lot of people that wouldn't sit down and eat in there, but they would carry the food out. And that gave me a good hook on that
Sure.
that particular story.
Sure.
And that's one that quite a few people have enjoyed.
Yeah. I would love to go on and probably talk for another hour or two just to see what's in that brain of yours and what's in that memory of yours. We are at wrap-up time for this. Just for our listeners' perspective, this program is actually being recorded on December 17th. I don't think that really matters with this program. It would be relevant 5 years from now, as far as I'm concerned. But again, just to put it in perspective, Jack, it has been a pleasure meeting you and visiting with you over these last couple of weeks. I thank you much for coming in, and I'm going to read some more Jack Miller articles.
Well, I hope so.
So-
I really appreciate that.
So keep it up. On behalf of John Meehan, my co-person on this program, who was not here today, but on his behalf, and Zach Bogart, our production engineer, this is Ron Toller, and we will be happy to visit with you again on another Let's Talk.